Morning members, it's a bit early. So last night I was out collecting pollen. Go away, little native bees. I love my native bees, but don't get me wrong, I've just loaded this plant with pollen, so I'm just here to guard them now. So what I'm doing is I am hybridising, or in this case self-pollinating. This is my elk Queenslander, which has come into flower. Over the past few weeks I've been going along and pollinating flowers as they open, and they open at night time, around 12 o'clock for this one. Around 8:30, 9 o'clock you're able to gently pry open the flowers and then remove the pollen. The reason we do that is you just saw my little honeybees, or my little native bees here. There they are up on top, stealing the pollen that I've already just put out, so I just need to shake them away. Now hopefully it won't, but it will go back to its hive and it'll say, "Oop, that's pollen here." So what I need to do is just guard these flowers for a little while just to get that pollen set. So what we do is there's parts of the flowers, this part here, that comes out. This is called the stigma, and all of these pollens I left on and didn't remove last night, and they've already been liberated. Same as this one up there, you can see the little black bee. They've already been liberated from their pollen, and it's still quite early in the morning, so that's the reason I need to take the pollen at night time and then come back and then pollinate the stigmas here in the morning. And then each of them are done by hand, and it's a simple process of dipping into my cup full of pollen. And there's a flower on the end here that I'm yet to do. So at the very tip of the flower there is a gelatinous substance, and that's what the pollen adheres to. Little sticky gel that looks like dew. That's how you know your stigma's ready to be receptive, and that may still be there for a couple of days, as in the case of that one. That particular flower opened yesterday and I didn't take its pollen. So for me, it's the easiest way is to just simply dip. They act like a little straw. So once they've been dipped into this pollen cup, now the pollen, when you first take it off late at night, isn't mobile. It's still wet, and it needs to dry out for several hours, usually overnight in the cool air, and then first thing this morning it's obviously ready for the bees or the insects to come along. Now last night there was quite a bit of insect activity around this plant, and so I decided to take all the pollen off and store it and preserve it, which is what I'm doing with the remainder of the pollen that I have here. It'll be getting tagged and put into the freezer. Now I just need to check where that little bee just went. So I'm just guarding the plants now for the next probably 20 minutes or so, just to ensure that the pollen has a chance to start to be absorbed. And what happens is the pollen slowly gets absorbed down this little tube, which then leads to the ovum and the ovary of the flower, which is where the seeds are then formed. And in this case with Alcantarea, that takes about 9 months, just like us, before the seeds are ready to harvest. And then we can start the process again. Now tonight there's going to be several flowers open again. As this plant matures more and more, this inflorescent, more and more flowers begin to open at night time. The way to tell what flowers are going to open, just gently put this pollen down so I don't lose it. That's Queenslander down there. It's the reason I'm pollinating this one, because that one can live in the full sun, never requires, so even a fly moving around up and down can help pollinate the flowers. So which flowers are going to open tonight? This one here, can you see it's extending? These bracts, these floral bracts are starting to extend now. So that one will most likely open tonight or tomorrow night. These smaller ones are still a couple of days away, and this one even longer, several weeks away. There's one off to the side that's going to open. So they open at different rates, which is why I check the flower inflorescence each afternoon. Gives me an idea how many flowers are going to be opening at night time and how much pollen I'm going to be storing. Now that little native bee is determined to take the pollen, and it will take all the pollen off the tips of these, and that's okay. Not really. This particular one here still needs some pollen added. So it's the one that I left the pollen on. And the bees will come along and they'll take all the pollen, but they haven't touched that stigma at the end. So essentially it wouldn't pollinate and produce seeds. Some of them will, but you get a much higher percentage if you are self-pollinating or cross-pollinating, and always tagging when you're doing such pollination, whether you're self-tagging, crossing, or whether or not you're crossing with another variety. You need to do all your tagging and documentation when it comes to doing hybrids and for saving seed. It's something that we do need to keep a record of. These little bees, they're everywhere, and that fly. All right, I'm not worried about the fly, but definitely the bee. All right, so that's how I go about pollinating Alcantarea and saving the pollen. Will now go into the freezer, this particular batch, and then it's ready to be used again and again, and I'll continue to harvest and store pollen to use on different alcants that are growing in the garden as they come into flower as well. Just watching this little bee again. Once again, it's going straight to the stigmas because that's where the pollen is. Cheeky little guys. You can see them swarming around that one now. All right. Happy gardening. Enjoy your weekend, folks. Bye now.